Mr. Deputy Speaker, COVID-19 has disrupted the lives and livelihoods of Singaporeans and has also brought us together. I would like to thank everyone for cooperating with the safety guidelines and regulations and taking the necessary precautions to curb the spread of COVID-19. This has been a difficult journey for all of us, and because of all of our collective sacrifices and effort, we have managed to flatten the COVID-19 infections curve and has kept the number of community infections low. Now, based on MTI's advanced estimates released today, the Singapore economy contracted by 7% on a year-on-year basis in the third quarter of 2020. Now, this was an improvement from the 13.3% contraction in the second quarter and came on the back of a phased reopening of our economy following the circuit breaker. But we're coming from a low base. Now, notwithstanding the improved performance in the third quarter, the recovery path ahead is expected to be slow and uneven across sectors. As the COVID-19 situation here in Singapore stabilizes, we have the opportunity to reopen our economy safely in a careful and calibrated manner. And the importance of reopening in a careful and calibrated manner cannot be overly emphasized, as the Honourable Members Louis Cha and Sharil Taha had mentioned earlier. But since we exited the circuit breaker on 2nd of June, we have been resuming more activities in a safe and progressive manner. We are currently in phase 2 and have reopened most of our economy, subject to safe management measures in place. Now, about 95% of businesses are now allowed to resume operations and more people are returning to office. About 2 weeks ago, we took another significant step towards restoring economic activity. We allowed more employees who have been working from home to return to their workplaces for up to half their working time. And we have also allowed work-related events at the workplace to resume. But as we strive to maintain Singapore's position as a business and transport hub, we are progressively reopening our borders. We are establishing reciprocal green lanes to conduct essential travel with other countries and regions, and with the necessary safeguards in place to ensure the safety of Singaporeans and our international visitors. We are also piloting new concepts to support our business in this new operating environment. These efforts will allow us to play a role in setting the global standards required to resume activities safely. A couple of examples. The first is cruise. So some cruise lines will soon start to operate cruises under stringent hygiene and safety measures for safe cruising. To ensure the highest hygiene and safety standards, Singapore is one of the first countries in the world to develop and implement a mandatory audit and certification program for cruise lines. A cruise safe certification is required before a cruise can commence sailing, and cruise lines which have been allowed to operate have since reported an overwhelming number of bookings received. We have also begun pilots of events and activities with a larger number of attendees. For instance, we are piloting the resumption of MICE events of up to 250 attendees. Under STB's Safe Business Events framework, event organizers are required to demonstrate their ability to meet specific health and safety outcomes before they are allowed to pilot events. We will continue to adapt and adjust our protocols and assess how we can allow more large-scale events to proceed. Critically, we have also ramped up our testing capability and capacity and are evaluating alternative tests and sampling methods as they become available to ensure that they can be deployed safely and effectively. In the immediate term, countries that manage the COVID-19 situation best can reap economic dividends, as they will be able to minimize any further disruptions to lives and livelihood. To do so, our business and community must continue to stay vigilant and exercise social responsibility as we resume more activities. So in the past few months, many businesses have benefited from the schemes and programs that we rolled out earlier this year to help them tide over the immediate challenges. For instance, our loan schemes have helped firms to address immediate cash flow issues. I want to update the House that as of September 2020, more than 18,000 enterprises have taken up loans under the ESG's loan scheme, such as the Temporary Bridging Loan Program. And as announced earlier this week, we are further extending and calibrating the loan schemes to to ensure enterprises can continue to access financing for their cash flow, trade activities, and project needs. At the same time, there is a pressing need to help businesses build new capabilities, as members have shared earlier, and adapt to new realities, because there is no going back to a pre-COVID world. So we are encouraged that many businesses have taken the opportunity to strengthen their capabilities and capture growth opportunities. So for those that need it, you can get support available through grants like the Productivity Solutions Grant, Enterprise Development Grant, and Market Readiness Assistance. But since the start of this year, ESG has supported over 28,000 projects under these schemes to help our companies increase productivity, build new capabilities, and expand overseas. We have also announced enhancements to these schemes as we continue to support companies to tap new sources of growth and adjust to the new operating environment. For instance, we are expanding the scope of the Market Readiness Assistance Grant to include support for participation in virtual trade fairs, so that companies can find new business opportunities without any physical travel. But as I said earlier, our economic recovery will be uneven. So some sectors will progressively recover, while others will have to pivot or restructure. And that is the reality. So we must therefore also ensure, as members had suggested, that our assistance is more nuanced and targeted. And MTI looks at the firms in three broad areas. The first are firms in sectors with good growth prospects, such as biomedical manufacturing, and we will help them scale faster and create more jobs for our workers. For firms in the second bucket, where in their sectors they are facing a temporary drop in demand due to COVID-19 but will eventually recover, such as F&B and aerospace manufacturing, we will help them to preserve capabilities, consolidate capacity, and tide them through this period. Third, for firms in sectors which have changed permanently, such as social entertainment, we will help them to pivot into new markets and business. So earlier on, the Honourable Member Dennis Tan had mentioned about discotheques. I just wanted to say that since March 2020, pubs, bars, nightclubs, discotheques, karaoke lounges have not been allowed to operate, as their operations pose higher risks of transmission arising from prolonged contact over a period of time. But I wanted to assure the House that the government has been in consultation with the nightlife industry, and we are finalizing the support measures to assist them with the affected firms and their employees. And we will announce more details shortly. But moving forward, we need to reposition our economy to capture these new opportunities and support our enterprises as they transform and restructure. We must also set our sights on capturing new growth trends brought to the fore by COVID-19, and by positioning Singapore as a global Asia node for technology, innovation, and enterprise. The points raised by members Saktiandi Supat and Jessica Tan. But in an increasingly complex global economy, we will not compromise on our hard-won reputation as a safe, trusted, and well-connected business hub for companies and workers to pursue growth. Now, we have a good foundation. We have worked hard to create the right macro conditions for cross-border trade and investments and innovation, even at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. What's critical is that we have kept our supply chains going, our businesses open, and ensured that goods and services continue to flow freely and efficiently through Singapore, and will continue to do so. In our discussions, MTS discussions with foreign chambers and businesses, they have recognized these efforts and deeply appreciate our commitment to a free and open trading system. Earlier, Member Jessica Tan had mentioned about new economic space in the increasingly digital world. Now, this is very important, as our interactions with the global marketplace of digital ideas is critical for new opportunities. I'll share about how we will help businesses tap into these new growth opportunities beyond our region. First, we have been working on the Digital Economy Agreement, which complements our network of free trade agreements by establishing international rules, setting benchmarks, and aligning standards in areas of digital trade. Singapore signed its first 2 digital economy agreements this year with Chile and New Zealand, and also with Australia. And we will do so with more partners. This supports the interoperability of Singapore's digital platforms and systems, such as e-payment, e-invoicing on digital identities, with those in other countries. And it's very, very important that we smooth this out from different countries and we have mutual recognition and standards of interoperability. Because why? This will allow our companies, especially SMEs, to internationalize and do business overseas. We will continue to encourage innovation and support companies in the journey to develop new products and solutions, and will enable us to capture new opportunities, especially those led by changing preference and needs. For example, consumer needs. I think somebody mentioned earlier about purchasing online. For instance, the growing concerns about supply chain disruptions and climate change have led, for example, to the demand for sustainability-related products. The Honourable Cheryl Chan spoke of the agri-food industry earlier on. I'd like to assure her that MTI is focused on developing this sector and playing the role as you mentioned, the catalyst. And we are taking on an active role. So last week I had an overseas trip to St. John's Island, where I visited the Singapore Food Agency's Marine Aquaculture Centre. And the Marine Aquaculture Centre houses a cluster of companies set up to innovate sustainable aquaculture solutions. So they're feeding shrimp, sea bass and others, and then it's a sustainable RAS system, as they call it. So one of the companies is Adisio, which announced the setup of its first in the world global aquaculture research station in Singapore. This research station will focus on innovative nutrition, health and technologies to develop optimized aquaculture feed solutions for the region and beyond. Another example is homegrown startup Turtle Tree Labs, which uses biotech to recreate the full composition, functionality, and taste of milk in a lab environment. Now, this method of producing milk is 95% less resource consumptive as compared to regular milk production practices. It's an example of a novel solution towards sustainable dairy production globally and could potentially strengthen Singapore's long-term food diversification efforts. So we will continue to build on our public investment in research and innovation through the Research, Innovation and Enterprise 2025 plan. And we will take into account shifts in the COVID-19 situation as we guide public sector R&D to identify critical technologies for Singapore and drive solutions that will meet the changing needs of Singapore and our global partners. So that's on the business side. For workers, as we restructure our economy and seek new growth opportunities, some jobs and livelihoods will be affected, but the government will continue to work closely with our workers, businesses and industry partners to help them seize the new opportunities available. On their end, our workers must also keep an open mind and be nimble to capture opportunities, including entering sectors which are new to them. And as a government, we will support our workers as they pick up new skills and prepare for new opportunities. We've been doing so through the Skills Future Credit programs under the SG United's Jobs and Skills Package and WSG's Professional Conversion programs. But at the same time, our businesses must also do all they can to retrain workers, retain, and treat them fairly. And we will support you as you do so. For instance, businesses can use the Skills Future Enterprise Credit to cover your expenses on workforce transformation initiative, including job redesigning and training for workers. The Jobs Growth Incentive also provides salary support to encourage businesses, especially those which are expanding, to hire more local employees, which the Minister for Manpower had mentioned earlier. And we're working with industry partners, including trade association chambers, TACs, and unions to provide valuable support in this journey, so you're not alone. So I give you an example. For instance, the extensive network and industry knowledge enable these TACs to reach out to companies and workers to facilitate job matching and training. An example is the Singapore Semiconductor Industry Association, who I spoke to a couple of weeks ago. Now, SSIA has been working with WSG on a professional conversion program to attract job seekers who are new to the electronics industry. And this is a growing industry. SSIA also partnered training institutes like Singapore Poly and the NUS School of Continuing and Lifelong Education, SCALE, to train and reskill the workers as they make a career switch. Since 2016, SSIA has facilitated the placement of over 1,200 workers into the electronics industry through the program. And we will continue to help our businesses and workers to adjust and transform. So our journey is fraught with challenges as businesses and workers will need to make painful but necessary adjustments to adapt and transform. But as I mentioned in my maiden speech, Singaporeans are no strangers to difficulties and challenges since our nation's founding. We have been through many ups and downs over the years, but we've always risen above the challenges and bounced back from adversity. We will continue to press on with resilience and will overcome this challenge together. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.